Cindy, and this is where we're going to move into the funding realm here for a moment. So, do you think that with the difficulties we've had with state support for the schools, this is going to three-parter coming up. So, first, the easy part comes first. Do you think the state's cap on local budget education funding needs to be lifted? And if so, what form would that take? If you can describe what that looks like to you. What strategies would you propose to make it happen? And in what way should, this is a four-part. And in what way should Shawnee Mission be collaborating with other Johnson County districts to address similar problems? I'll repeat that for you, Mark, when it gets back.
Okay.
So you can wrap up everything about funding in one question if you like. Should the cap be lifted if it's just the cap on option budget, or is there some other way that you think funding should be made more flexible with caps, for local funding? How would you make that happen? And how would you collaborate with other Johnson County districts on this issue?
I think there's collaboration between our superintendents right now. But as I say, each district is unique in their needs. But there is collaboration that goes on weekly, monthly, even daily. I know they're talking to each other. As far as the local option budget, of course, Shawnee Mission would like to have the local controlled option. But then you get into the state issues of equalization. Those are fights that come from the legislature. They're not fights that we have here in our district. We are passionate about funding. But I know from serving in the legislature, that is like the Hatfields and the McCoys. We have something that they don't have. And until it's equalized as part of that funding formula coming out of either, this is not going to change. I fought for a new finance law when Tim Rooney was our financial leader, and it actually would have provided a great influx and was more equitable across the state for all districts. What I ran into, though, were people that said, how's this going to affect my district? I held meetings, 14 different meetings among legislators, all times, morning, day, and night. And many of them would call or come by and say, what does this piece of paper have to do with it? And it had nothing to do with it, because they didn't want to educate themselves. Although the opportunity was always there. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. So, in the capital arena and the operational arena, that is a constitutional law that we're guided by. I would continue to work with legislators, but I'm not sure that they want to listen.
Karen, do you need my 4 parts again?
Well, let's see if my answer aligns with what your questions were. I think it's universal. I'm sure there's someone in the community that is not in favor of a local option budget, and that as a community, if we want to provide more tax increases or property tax increases for our schools, I think most people are for that. I actually agree with Ms. Neighbor. I don't think that's going to happen, because what it requires is, from Western Kansas, they want equalization. So if we pass the plate and all put in money, then they want the Topeka to give them a similar amount of that also under the governor's tax plan. I don't see how that's going to happen. One of the kind of changes around the edge, there's a bill that we can have an increase in local option budget that went to extracurricular activities, so to fund the football program or some activities like that. I think that's a bit bait and switch, because what you're going to end up doing is asking a homeowner to increase their property taxes to fund school events, which is fine, but at the same time the governor wants to eliminate the property tax deduction on your taxes. So, think, are you willing to chip some money in if you know that all those tax deductions then go away? I think it becomes a little more money at the box office on that. The other comment on that I received is, so the school district asked high school students to chip in, I think it's $92 or $98 or something like that to participate in extracurricular activities. So if we pass the state funding on that, do they still have to pay the $98 or not? So you have to resolve that. On the collaboration component of it, I think that Kansas City, Kansas, which is on the same path that we are on, they have about 80% free and reduced lunch. They have 40% English language learner. My time's up, and you would love that answer too.
You can save all your follow-up.
Well, and another bill that was being proposed was taking our LOB funding, our 31%, and whatever we obtained from that, the state would reduce our funding from the state, which is another pass-through. What we are currently finding is the legislature is looking for ways to place the burden at the local level, which is called local control. We cannot sustain that level with the kind of demographic, change in demographics that we currently have in Shawnee Mission. Our older population is increasing. I know in Shawnee, over 55% of our citizens are over 55. They're on fixed incomes. They may be low income. And if you pass all of this to property tax, we're going to have great problems.
What I was going to comment on is Kansas City, Kansas is on the same kind of path on, or maybe they're into the path. They've had the demographic changes, and they have the struggles with not having a strong support system at home. The mom's working 2 jobs, so the mom's not reading to the kids. So the kid's exposed to hundreds of thousands of fewer words than a child down the street here that's read to every night and watched PBS and does all the things that you want for a child. And they're saying from this side of the fence that we're not taking the easier, proactive actions that we can take now before it really gets out of control, and then you're making much more severe and significant cuts and changes than would necessarily be helpful. So I encourage people not only to look over into the greener grass of Blue Valley, but also look to your north and see some successful things that we're doing there, and don't be afraid to try some of those.